In the last video, we saw how to use Hookpad's record tool and lyrics tool to input a melody, rhythm, and lyrics of a simple verse into Hookpad. In this part, we'll finish the verse by writing a chord progression and melody. Let's tackle the chord progression next. As we discussed in the last video, it's often easier to start with the chord progression rather than the melody, since the chords will serve as a guide for the notes that we choose for our melody. Let's begin by filling the chord track with 2-beat rests. These rests will act as placeholders as we come up with chords. Next, let's make the first chord 1 and make the last chord a cadence chord, like 5. There are no strict rules for the chords in between, so feel free to be creative. And if you ever need some suggestions, you can always enter in magic chord, which will suggest the most commonly used chords based on your progression so far. Let's begin our progression with something simple like 4, 5, and then 1. And then let's try a minor chord like 6. Now we know we need to get back to our 5, but say we don't know what chord to use next. Let's try using magic chord. One important thing about magic chord is that it's going to analyze the melody on top of our chord. So let's turn these notes to rests temporarily. Click on the chord, and then click Magic. Magic chord suggests using the 4 chord, but since we've already used it, let's try something different and choose the 2 instead. And finally, to get back to the 5, let's use one of my favorite chords, the 5 suspended 4. Now, we can play our chord progression, but before we do, let's open the mix tool. Here we can adjust the instrument mix in case we want our chord progression to sound more like a real song. Let's also make sure to mute our melody, voice 1, since we haven't written it yet. Now that we have the chord progression, we can move on to the melody. As we've discussed before, one of the keys to writing melody is understanding the difference between stable notes, or notes that are contained in the underlying chord, and unstable notes, or notes that are not contained in the underlying chord. Hookpad can show you which notes are stable and unstable in your chord progression by clicking the Stable button. Good melodies balance the tension created by unstable scale degrees with the stability offered by stable ones. If you are new to this concept, a great place to start is first to create the overall shape of your melody with stable scale degrees, smoothing it out later with unstable ones. Let's do this together. First, turn on the stable scale degrees, and let's adjust the notes of our melody to match up with stable scale degrees over each chord according to the shape of the melody that we'd like. For example, let's say we want to start our melody by going up. The 1 chord has stable scale degrees 1, 3, and 5. Let's start on 3, go up to 5, and move on to the 4 chord. The 4 chord has stable scale degrees 1, 4, and 6. So let's continue going up with our melody to scale degree 6. Continue shaping your melody in this manner, sticking to stable scale degrees. When you're finished, you'll have a melody that's entirely made of stable scale degrees. While this lacks the tension of a more diverse melody, it should still sound nice. Next, let's use some unstable scale degrees to smooth out some of the jumps in our melody. It's okay for melodies to have some jumps, but smoothing it out in this manner can make it flow a lot better. Now that we're done, we can either export this to sheet music, or we can export this to MIDI to work on this further in an audio workstation.